Before you made the decision to apply, you were doing exactly what you always dreamed you would be doing. You are officially, categorically, a professional artist. By professional, you mean that you have trained years and worked years to be in a position where people come to you to pay you to make art, and you regularly, successfully make a case to people to fund and support you to make art. But the catch, which you never knew in those years bartending or in retail, dreaming of the moment that you currently are apparently in receipt of, is that this way of living that you dreamed of is unsustainable. There's this small moment or series of moments where you are making the thing that you want to make. And the rest of the time, you're trying to justify the making of it. You're trying to find a way for other people to engage with it. You're trying to find a space for it to exist. You're wanting to make sure that it doesn't seem too close to something someone else has made. You're wondering whether it's even relevant or whether it's even something that you should be making. And you're wondering if it's any good. And while you're doing all this, you're trying to do other things to get by. You are helping others make work. You are advocating for those who are in your position. And sometimes you think all you really want is a big chunk of uninterrupted space and time where you can just sit and reflect and rest and think. And you've tried to build this in. You've tried to make space for it. You've tried many, many forms of mechanisms, retreats, holidays, days off, afternoons off. But it always comes back to being burned out or close to, and it's always more of the same. So then one day, when in the last thread of an Arts Digest email, you saw this opportunity, the ultimate residency, a residency on Mars. A place you vaguely knew was sometimes referred to as the Red Planet, but in terms of anything else, you would struggle to elaborate. It seemed crazy, but crazy was exactly what maybe you needed. It wasn't even just about the art anymore. It was that you felt like you'd come to some kind of existential crisis of what any of this stuff was for. What were you making anything for? You felt like what you needed was just to completely separate yourself from the entire arts industry machine. And where better to do that than a place where the machine didn't even exist? And maybe you were taking things a bit impulsively because you didn't know where else that space was. And you were tired of selling yourself, selling the work, selling the idea of art itself. The thing that you wanted to do, even when you were doing it, you just weren't sure about anymore. And so you find yourself downloading this application form and you begin to apply. I want the time and the space, the time and the uninterrupted space to create without distraction, disruption, and demands. I want to know what it's like to create purely for the sake of creating, no matter how self-indulgent that might sound and seem. I want to know what it's like to wake up every morning and to truly have agency over what I'm going to do each day, to be free of social obligations, to know what real quiet is, to disengage from the political landscape. I want to know what it's like to truly create by myself with my thoughts. I want to know what kind of work I make when I wake up every morning and around me, all I see is a completely foreign and barren landscape. One can think that you know what it means to be somewhere foreign by traveling. But this This would be a foreign that is planetary. I want to know what kind of ideas form in that space. I want to know the acoustics of space. I want to know if it will make my thoughts change, my ideas change. Everything that I have ever made has been in response to my environment, has been in dialogue with culture, with people. I don't think that's something necessarily I'll escape, but I wonder what culture will be important to me, what memory will be of value to me when I am so far away. I would like to say that I'm prepared, but I don't think anyone is prepared for such a task. As someone who has always made work, reimagining the world that I'm in, I want to know what it means to make in a world in which I'm not. You look at what you've written. It was so unlikely you'd get this opportunity. You briefly noticed the fine print, something about potential complications in returning. Anyway, like every application you make, you sent it and then resolved to just not think about it. And you wouldn't think about it, not the day after or the 6 months until you got an email. Let me tell you about Mars. Mars, known as the Red Planet, has the largest dust storms in the solar system. On Mars, our sun appears about half the size as it does on Earth. Sunsets on Mars are blue. Mars and Earth have approximately the same amount of landmass, and only 18 missions out of 40 from Earth have been successful. But right now, on your way to Mars, all you can think about is Earth. You are crouched in a corner, trying to bring yourself to where you were. You were in a garden. It was once a show garden. At a certain time of year, people would have a special invitation to see it. And you were there. You were there every day. It was next door to you. You were trying to bring yourself into that place, in a place where there is no outside space. You who are now leaving are doing everything you can to remember where you were the day before you left. You're trying to remember bees crawling over pink blossoms. You're trying to remember the bird song waking you up at 4:30 in the morning. Fluff from some plant that you don't know the name of floating in the air, pollinating something. The shock of fur as a neighbor's cat has appeared again, curling around your legs. There are so many bees, and they have zero interest in you because there are pollen-rich flowers everywhere. The birdsong is a soft murmur, and this fluff, like dandelions, but of something else, is floating around. You are looking ahead at a massive rhododendron bush that was once full of pink flowers. And in these 3 to 4 months that you have lived here, spending so much time in this garden, you become more and more aware of cycles. The pink flowers beside you were white, and before that green. You remember the first time you decided you would deadhead the roses, and your panic that maybe you would cut them off and they would never flower again. And yet now you've seen them flower several times over, each time it changing to a slightly different shade of pink. How is that possible? The vines growing along the house, turning from green to red to amber, threatening to overtake one of the windows, a collage. On the day before you left, there were butterflies in the garden for the first time in weeks. It had felt like summer had finished early. It had been gray. It had even been windy and rainy on that last weekend in August when you went to see the sea. But on the day before you left, not knowing exactly when you would be again or how things might shift in your departure, the sun came out. The warmth seemed to speak to some kind of new change. The brambles had been your ongoing battle over that whole summer. That and the battle of loss. because you had lost so much in that year. And the day before you left, you made one last attempt, cutting the brambles back, using the technique that your mother had taught you, to use the shears to pick them up, tangle the threads of many of them, long streaking back behind you on the grass, knowing that no one else would be cutting them anytime soon or ever, wondering why you were cutting them now and why it mattered. On the day before you left, you thought about how you have such a hard time with leaving and change, and yet you always seem to be finding somewhere else to go to, and how you seem to resist settling and then eventually settle and then find it so hard to leave. And you try to tell yourself all the reasons it was so urgent for you to go. You try to remind yourself of the afternoons where you felt you couldn't think straight and you just wanted your own space. And now you would have so much space. And you can't even really remember the application that you made to bring you on this journey. You just know that you need to go. You just know that there's no pulling out of it now. You're already on your way. You who never cared much for nature up until 4 months ago. And now it seems so vital. Who was going to deadhead the roses in your absence, and what would happen if you stopped? What would happen for everything just to become overgrown? You really think about what it's going to mean to not hear birds or feel grass. I can't believe after all these advancements in technology, I'm left to rely on voice notes on WhatsApp. So yeah, I'm out here, and it's, I guess the thing I didn't really think about is that up until I made the trip, I hadn't ever had that much time. Well, the thing I didn't really think about with the trip is that it took 2 years to get here, right? So it was a really amazing journey, but then by the time I got here, I kind of felt like I'd already done the residency getting here, you know? It's really strange trying to make work when you don't know if there's ever going to be an audience. I was always really interested in making things as a way of expressing myself, but I never really thought about how much you, whoever you are, if you can even hear me because this connection's so bad, I guess I came out here to find out why and how I even make work, and now that I'm here, I think I was making it for you, you know? I just want you to know that I realize I can't do this without you. And I wish I knew that before I came. And I need you to know how vital you are. I want you to know that this journey that I made was not for nothing, because now I know it was always about you. It was always about you. You, the audience. So who knows, maybe one day I'll find a way to